Yes, good morning again, and welcome to this program of Pan-African Friday. Being a Friday today, we come to you with the Pan-African program, which brings to you African issues both at home and also away from home. And as usual, we look at a number of issues that affect the people of Africa, those who are living here in this beautiful continent of Africa, and those who are living outside of Africa. Last week, by the time we ended, we were looking at the issue of poverty, and we were looking at poverty as a serious issue, but we're also asking ourselves, is poverty designed for African people? Are African people responsible for the poverty? And in any case, we're also looking at what is poverty, and who decides, who determines who a poor person is and who a rich person is. So those are some of the issues that we are looking at. But because a poverty issue is a wide subject, we couldn't finish it then. We pushed it up to this week and this day, where we'll continue with more discussion on this particular topic of poverty. And today in the studio, as usual, I'm joined by Rachel Takali. I'm also joined by the usual suspect, Ndogo Irumba. We'll be joined, if time allows, by Ndogo Rugarama, who will be on Zoom if possible, and Ndogo KD, who is in Las Vegas in the US, also who will be joining us to look at this crucial subject of poverty and what it means to be poor, especially in the African continent. But as usual, we normally, and I can say, ladies and gentlemen, you are welcome to the program. This program comes to you, Catastrophe UBC, all the way from Nilo Avenue here in the heart of Kampala. And I know there are many of the people who are following us from outside Uganda and also sometimes outside of Africa. My name is James Mututa, and I will be looking at these issues together with my colleagues now in the studio, and those I have said will be out of the studio. But also welcome your views from wherever you are. You can send us your views. Will be shortly giving you a number on the screen that you can send the views on. And before I go to, as usual, we begin with what has transpired in this continent and of concern to the African people, but also that piques our interest as panelists. But before we go to that, I will start with some of the views that you viewers raised last time, which we were not able to respond to. I think at least I'll have two here. One was from DRC. Joseph, who was saying that from Kisangani, who was saying that why is it that most of the African countries that are listed as poor countries are the countries that have major natural resources when you compare with the countries of Europe. And this is something that we discussed here, ladies and gentlemen, that the 10 listed countries as the poorest countries of the world, most of them are in Africa, all of them actually in Africa. You find that the 10 listed countries, or as the poor countries of the world, are the same countries that have major mineral resources in the world. So what is the irony? That people who are wealthy are the ones who are classified as poor. That's what Gerard Joseph is raising from DRC, and you will we shall be able to maybe give more light on that. And another one was, I picked those from outside of Uganda because I also want to encourage more from elsewhere. The next one is from Burundi, who says Burundi is now listed as the poorest country in the world. But why are we listed as the poorest of the world when think, of course, the English of Burundi, but we're saying when we can live a better life there are some people who are living in the US and other parts of the world. It's also wondering why Burundi is listed as the poorest, and yet there are people who we know of who are living in worse excuse me, conditions than the people who are living in Burundi. So those are the two issues that I picked. Of course, there were more, but I picked those two because they were of concern to me, but also of interest to other panelists as we are looking at the issue of poverty, because definitely these are some of the issues that we looked at the other time. But if time allows, we'll also bring you specific examples of what it is to be poor, especially in a country of the of United States. Now, before we get to that, as usual, we start our week with the what has transpired and which could be or is of interest to us as the panelists, but also to the rest of the African population. And to do that, I think I'll begin with Rachel to let us know what you picked of interest in the week concerning this beautiful continent of Africa.
I think for me, the issues that I zeroed in of interest to me are really round about where we are, not very far. The one is the agreement between DRC Congo and Uganda that they will no longer need visas of persons, citizens of either country, if they should move to DRC or to Uganda in either direction. I think that is a powerful affirmation of the aspirations of the people of East Africa. Not only that, also in Kampala last weekend, and it ended earlier this week, is the Nile Basin Initiative, which is really an arrangement that some countries on this very continent do not look very kindly upon, but it is very Pan-African in nature, in that most of the countries through which the Nile goes are saying they really need to get more out of this resource than has been the case until now. So despite the fact that Egypt and Sudan in particular, with northern Sudan, which by colonial arrangement had a disproportionate advantage in the use of Nile waters, are understandably very unhappy at this time, because these other countries are saying, look, to develop or to offer power to my people or to scale up irrigation, I really don't have to ask permission from the people of Egypt. In as much as you have a right to a decent living, so do I. So for me, those ones were most interesting to me around these parts.
Yeah, sure. And of course, I think on the same, when you look at even beginning with the DRC, excuse me. I mean, once you agree to a marriage, it is also incumbent upon you to observe the vows. So one would have expected, and it's something that we discussed here some time back, that why is it some of these countries that are joining us in the East African community seem to hold a lot behind their backs? Because DRC should have done that as soon as they were welcomed in the community. But until I think 2 weeks ago, they were still charging $50 that Ugandans pay on visa for entry into DRC, and then you can't understand why you took the vows in bad and good, and then you are now saying before you enter this house you have to pay. Am I still paying like I was paying the other people? So I think it is good that it has happened, but I think it should have happened a long time ago. But anyway, we thank God it has happened. But the other issue raised of the Nile, I think some of these agreements, like some people are saying, should be looked at. These colonial agreements really are not very healthy. But for purposes of peace, we need also to, I think the president of Uganda who put it very well, the equitable use of the resources and the responsible use of the resources. because if you are going to drain the water and then you even have to control, I mean, Uganda would have a very big say over the waters, but that these waters, you remember last time when the issues of the other Nile, between Ethiopia and the neighbors, when they were putting up the dam. So I think there must be the equitable use and the responsible use of these resources, so that in the future we don't go in those problems. But maybe this, by the time these agreements were drawn, we didn't have the challenges that the world is facing today in terms of natural resources. But now with time, maybe something needs to be looked at. And I agree with you on that. I will skip the new guest and go to Ndugu Irumba and look at your week.
Thank you so much, Comrade Mututa, and all my fellow panelists, Rachel and my comrade here. This week I have two issues that I kind of paid attention to. Number one is about what happened at our parliament here. You remember last week what happened here? It speaks to the level of integrity of our MPs, but also failure to stick to rules of the game. I know that according to parliamentary business, if something happens, a member of parliament has immunity on the floor of parliament. Once you go out, whatever you do is subject to the law. If I said you are hopeless on the floor of parliament, you cannot sue me. But if you went outside if you went outside the parliament and went to my constituency and you said, I am hopeless, if I believe that it's an abuse, I will take you to court, and the court will listen to the merits of the case, and they will act appropriately. So I think that the notion of bringing everything from outside and you bring it on the floor of parliament as a national issue, you know, there is this opportunity that they give people, members of parliament, to bring issues of national concern. Someone brings a personal issue and you want the whole country to spend the resources and time on it. I think it is illogical. But also number three on that same issue is women, you must stop this, Rachel. When someone slaps Rachel, a slap to Rachel is a slap to women. That's about Rachel now as a member of parliament. But the women in Kaleerwe, when they face a problem, no, that's their problem as women. I saw this. There are many women who were tortured in Kasese attack. There are many women who have died in these Bobi Wine 2021 elections, arrested, tortured illegally. The women of parliament did not say this is about women. No, it only came about women. Collective responsibility. When a member of parliament who is a female is attacked, you must stop this foolery. You must stop it. If it is about women, let every woman matter in your life.
I agree.
So that's it. Now, on the other larger scale, I also want to look at the Israel-Palestine war. I have been discussing with some friends, how does Africa get affected by Israel and Palestine war? You have already started hearing discussion that Palestinians are being pushed to go to Egypt. That is Africa now. You see? Number two.
Because some came from there.
But now, that is affecting us as a continent. So we must pay attention to what is happening. And we must tell this Biden and his cowboys that nobody agrees with Hamas and Palestine for killing innocent people, unborn children, young babies in the hospital. Nobody agrees with that. But again, you cannot correct a wrong with another wrong. I cannot bomb Israel and the whole world condemns me, and tomorrow Israel is given ammunition by America to go and bomb children and innocent civilians as a retaliation. You have not corrected any mistake. You have actually escalated the problem. So you realize that this cowboy called America and his cousins, their ultimate mission is one: ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. Clear them all, kill them all, come and occupy the place. That has been their primary objective. So they are actually trying to use this as an opportunity to occupy Palestine.
Yep.
And this also tells me, as an analyst, as an investigative journalist, that maybe, because I've also started realizing, investigating, realize that the things they said that Palestine did, killing of children, killing of women, these things did not happen. CNN and Al Jazeera and so on have started retracting their statements that they have not found any baby killed, beheaded. So, they could craft that message to raise anger to the world, to support their primal agenda. It is very possible, and America is known for that. So they come and pretend something has happened. Actually, when they are the ones, America bombed its own towers to create that analogy. They bombed themselves. So even here, America could be doing something because they want to help Israel occupy that territory.
Yeah, but you know, when a madman gets a stick and beats you, if you don't beat him back, that madman will still continue beating you. So I also think, but we shall, I think, discuss that later in the program when we look at the ongoing conflict between the two communities in the Gaza. Now, I will also now introduce to you a new person on the panel, and this is Dr. Gerard Werike Wanzala. Now, Dr. Werike Wanzala is an academician. It's not the doctor we know of.
Not a medical doctor, but a doctor of books.
You know, there is one who said the doctor of beans. This one is not even the doctor of beans, but the doctor of brains, yeah? Who is a specialist in the public policy and development, and comes to us to look at the number of issues that we are looking at today. Because if you are talking about poverty, you are talking about issues of policy, but also you are looking at issues of development. How do we develop amidst poverty, and how do we, is it development? Does it go in the absence of poverty, or something like that? But I may not take you to how you have seen the week, but we could go straight to the topic that we're here to discuss today. Last time when we were looking at poverty, we looked at issues, especially now, World Bank is looking at poverty as the absence of money, and not just money, dollars. That if you are not able to have or spend $2, or some people have raised up to 5, like in the countries where they seem to be growing up. So no, for you, now you are developing China, yours, the poverty will be determined at $5, and for others it's $2. So it's the issue of $2 that determines whether you are rich, whether you are poor. So it is not about any other thing, but it's the absence of money, and the absence of money only in dollars, because you are not going to look at poverty in terms of how much Kenya shillings or Tanzania shillings or Uganda shillings, but we are looking at poverty. So I want also to pick from you, what do you think about, how do you look at poverty to begin with in your mind, in your exposure? What do you look as poverty?
Good morning, our viewers, our esteemed viewers. It is a pleasure being here as a panelist today, and thanks to my colleagues who are here to share. I've met him at Salt TV, I think.
Okay.
So
you are yet to meet her?
Yes, I'm yet to meet her, but she has had great submissions already. So I know I'm with the right people. Maybe before I come to the topic, let me also use 1 minute to say what I saw in the week.
Oh, that is good, because I didn't want to tax you on that, just in case you are not ready.
I followed a debate in the Kenyan Parliament where a committee of Parliament on East African affairs is pushing for the countries that pay more in the East African Parliament to have veto powers, so they can veto decisions of the East African community.
Trust me, Kenyans are good at that.
Yes, and the reason is that they are paying more, and amidst dwindling support from development partners, other countries are not actually paying, like Southern Sudan and Burundi. So it is a concern that if you are not paying, then why should we have the same voice? So I just hope some
Tagging
of
their voice on money.
on money.
It is wrong.
Yes. So I
Yeah,
just
it is
hope.
poverty. Once you are poor, no, they began to summarize it. They began to summarize it.
Omwavuta yogera.
That
It is
is
not poverty. Even among the rich, that arrangement exists.
the club of equals.
That is what, yeah, no, first among equals, really. Because we all know that in arrangements where America is and its European cousins, they don't have the same voice. America speaks the most because they pay the most.
Yes. Whoever,
Yes.
whoever pays the piper.
Yeah,
I
I
like
think
that.
they are borrowing this from the global system,
Yeah.
the way it operates. But I hope it does not affect and lead to the disintegration of the East African community. We need to be careful because at the end of the day, if voices are denied, some people may not feel the
Because of
importance because
Yes.
of money.
If you
The
don't
reason.
have money, don't speak.
Exactly, for
That's
belonging
wrong.
there. Now, the issue of poverty. Of course, you rightly say the World Bank measures poverty based on income. And yet, in human development, there are dimensions of poverty that are broad. For instance, there is income poverty, that's about money. You also have education poverty, because you are not able to gain education. But of course, sometimes you may not gain education because of various reasons. It may not only be money, but you may also go to school, but you are not studying because of the quality of education that is being given. Then the other is also issues to do with the health, access to health. And then if you go to Human Development Index, they also include things such as human security, like food security, for instance. That if you are in a country and you don't have access to food and people are malnourished, of course that is also poverty. So, but at the end of the day, if we broaden and we define poverty as broadly as that, how do countries navigate to ensure that they get out of where they are to the next level? Many times, the best solutions have to be homegrown. They have to be homegrown, and these must be policies that are developed based on the local context to ensure that they apply correctly, they target the right people, and then resources are put in the right place to ensure that the transformation is visible. Now, the dilemma that Africa has faced always is the issue of external influence in the form of control and influence. And this influence is now what is bringing the issue of the concept of neocolonialism, that you should control by imposing certain institutions, global institutions, on the countries, impose economic policies and programs, impose the culture, such that people internally don't look at their own values, their own traditions as an input in developing their countries. Like today, many of the young people in Africa think that African traditions are negative. And therefore, because that's also neocolonialism, to influence the culture. Then you have the politics, that a situation may not fit you, but you have to adopt it because you are depending on aid and loans from those countries. But if you compare, for instance, the Arab Africa and the Black Africa, for instance, if you go and look at the structural differences in society, you see that the transformation in the Arab Africa is totally different, that it has moved. If you look at indicators like housing, access to health, access to education, they have moved way, way, way back. One, because they fought to preserve their culture. And then secondly, I think they were able to resist certain things, like not adopting everything that the foreign interest push in their countries. For instance, if you go to the Arab African countries, you'll find that their religion, for instance, and then the Arab culture, and then education are kind of moving together. Fused. But if you come to Black Africa, you find the politics Like, let me go to the aspects of democracy, for example. If you see what we practice, like you spend, I saw our roadmap, for instance, 1.3 trillion for elections of 2026. You're going to spend that large sums of money, but the practice of real, maybe democracy, sometimes you don't believe in what you're actually doing, but you are doing it because other people have, ritual, other people have imposed it on you. So at the end of the day, you don't even achieve your development goals because the election is going to trigger conflict, it is going to trigger fighting, it is going to trigger wastage of public resources, spending on security because of the countering the reaction from the citizens. At the end of the day, your development trajectory is distorted. So at the end of the day, democracy has not helped you.
Actually,
But,
you're doing somebody's program.
Exactly, it has not helped you.
It's not yours.
Now, we have seen countries like Egypt that had relatively longer periods, for instance, with, say, the former president, who is this? Mubarak. We saw a lot of transformation in Egypt, growth in tourism, improvement in housing, and actually education levels went up. And of course, many people say that maybe the backlash and the protests that took him out were because of his own achievements. But there was no concrete democracy during his time. The same case with Gaddafi. Now, in sub-Saharan Africa, for instance, because we copy and paste, and yet we don't believe in what we are doing, at the end of the day, it's not able to help. For instance, if you go and do a peek into the policies, our interventions around, you may find that a number of them may not directly really impact positively the poverty levels in the community, but some of them have come as conditional. And for me, that's why I go to the writings of people like Nkrumah in 1965, who were telling people that at that time that let's look at the aid that we are getting. Unregulated aid is going to cause problems for Africa.
Sure.
And so poverty in Africa has a number of dimensions. It has a number of factors why it persists. And then, of course, if you look at the global system where you don't control the technology, it answers to the question the person asked from Congo. I think that was Joseph in your introduction. Joseph said, why are we poor countries regarded as poor have resources? You may have the resources in the soil, okay, but you don't have access to technology, and therefore you remain poor because when the resources are in the soil, they are useless until you are able to exploit them for improvement of lives of the people.
Sure. Yeah, and I think that's the issue that this guy also tagged. Why should we be tagged our wealth? Because we are looking at our two issues. The issue here that the World Bank, the international system is promoting is the money, the dollar, and that is the hard cash, the money. But I think in the African context, we normally don't look at money. Money is just one of the aspects of wealth. And we look at wealth. Now, what makes a person wealthier is not how much money that person has, but how much resources that he controls, as maybe as a person, as a family, as a community.
And those resources may not necessarily be cash money.
And if they were, even if they were cash money, they are not dollars,
Hey.
which the international system wants us to put ourselves on. That so that when you put the issue of dollar, you are cutting out a greater percentage of people who do not, well, one will say it is implied, but even that implied implication has also implications. And when you are looking at money, for example, when you at the definitions, I think there is this one I came across, which they refer to as fiat money, which is government-issued currency that is not backed by any fiscal commodity, but by the stability of the issuing government. Sincerely. And this, we're talking about the dollar now. that this dollar is very famous because it is not backed by anything, not even a cow, but because the issuing government is said to be stable. But if you are looking at stable governments in this world, maybe that will also be a discussion for the other day. So the issue of poverty we're talking about here is not that, because when you look at the listed countries of Africa, for example, not that these people are so poor that they don't have the wealth that we're talking about, but because maybe they don't have the $2 that they need for every day, but they even need the dollars, Rachel.
I think even to build on the submission of Dr. Wanzala, one of the things that we spoke about the last time was that we as Africans have to quickly find a way to redefine many of these concepts as they exist today. These concepts, among them the poverty line, and it's the very one you're talking about, the $2 a day, are some things that someone sits in Washington and decides that that is really what poverty is. These people have been deciding to the point of telling us when to breathe and when to laugh. They have occupied the principal reason why humans see fit to do things that advance them. Central to a person's being is the issue of dignity. I said before that one of the more important legacies of colonialism is the destruction of the dignity of a whole people. The destruction of the idea that we had a destiny quite apart from the white man's definition of where we should be or go. Among these constructs that afflict us today is the issue of someone deciding what you should be and where and why. There's a small country in Asia called Bhutan. That country did not open up significantly to the rest of the world until about a generation ago. Those people have consistently rejected the Western definition of what this whole poverty or well-being is all about. They have their own concept called gross national happiness. They have refused to be drawn into arguments about gross domestic product. They say, look, a person is holistic, and this is informed by their Buddhist roots. They say, you cannot define me except you take into consideration my social outlook, my physical factors that surround me, matters spiritual, and of course environmental. For them, they say this business of saying it is only down to dollars and cents is nonsensical. There is no human being who's defined by money alone. We, on the other hand, have been taking this as gospel truth and applying it vigorously to disastrous results. It's also interesting that nearer to where we can relate to, in a country called Singapore, they have also refused to be defined by this concept called the GDP. Not GDP, but the poverty line. They say, for you to say that my people are poor because they don't have 3,000 shillings a day is nonsense. I will decide what constitutes poverty. I will decide that even when someone does not have money in their pocket and they're actually productive on other levels, they may not be poor from my viewpoint. I find it interesting also that while these people insist that all of Africa must be defined in terms of $2 a day, whether or not you can get that within a given time frame, some of the countries that are considered to be among the richest by GDP per capita, we have a country like Luxembourg, I think it's at the top. And this country defines its poverty line as anyone who within a month has less than 2,000, about 2,000 euros a month. They do not go by dollars per day. We're talking about people who originate a system for other people. I found it interesting also that a country that is listed among the second in the world in terms of wealth per capita, that country is called Bermuda, a little island. Yeah. And for them, they say if you get less than $100,000 a year, why are they not saying $2? Another one, and this is Ireland, these are all top 5. Ireland says, look, to be poor in this society, you have to be earning less than 300 euros a week. Some people say a week, other people say a month, other people say a year. But some people say it is in dollars, other people say it is euros. Why isn't there a common denominator? Yet when you come to Africa, you say whether you live in Egypt, $2. Whether you live in South Africa, $2. Whether you live in CAR, $2. Are we in the same situation? Who are these people who decide that the people of Africa must be in one jacket, are the same mentally, physically, socially? You can't think for yourself? That is the problem. This definition of poverty is warped. It really is.
We are going off for a break, and when we come back, we are going to look at all these issues that have been raised and look at the poverty in Africa. Is it an African problem, or this poverty is just being determined by someone for purposes of their own narrative? We'll be back with all these discussions shortly. Please don't go away. We're just going off for a short break.
In Bushenyi district, we run a number of programs ranging from service delivery to wealth creation. We have the presidential initiative on wealth creation, a MUGA program, where we have 34 circles that have been given funds for the last 2 years, of which each circle received 33 million and only 2 managed to receive 50 million each. These funds have enabled the different categories of our population to engage into business-related activities, and we can see their incomes getting better. Some of them are into tailoring, others into mechanics, into carpentry, hairdressing, mention it. And so far, they are running their enterprises smoothly.
This weekend on UBC.
It was just fire, fire, and girl, I couldn't face this. No, I couldn't face this.
What's up, beautiful people? We are here at Center High School, Nama campus, and guess what? We are having a lot of vibes. If you are not watching Teens Crown, you do not know where you are, because it's going down right here, right now.
We have found our way. It's a brand new day, and we'll be making history. Are you with me? Won't you stay? We have come so far. This
and one for
The stage is a world of entertainment.
getting the time.
Get the latest entertainment, lifestyle, events, and activities. Chats with celebrities that make headlines.
It's your girl Zari, Mama Tifa. I'm in town. I'm in Uganda.
It's showbiz. Join me, Mary. I intend to connect you to a lot of fun. Cause I know you want it, you love it, you enjoy it. All on Powerful Level Magazine, reloaded for you right here on UBC. Don't miss out every Saturday, 12 p.m.
This is Chilling. Don't miss a brand new season of Chilling on UBC TV.
Nibanyita kananye niyita Season Wagaba commercial officer abwantunga mu district government.
I am Season Wagaba, the commercial officer for Ntungamo local government. I express my gratitude to God for this platform and the Emyuga initiative brought to us by His Excellency Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, as it has positively transformed the lives of the people in Ntungamo, whom I have known for a long time. When you visit the beneficiaries of this program, you can easily witness the significant positive changes in their lives. The audit report demonstrates that despite their leader being deaf and blind, profits are being made, highlighting how this program has actively engaged and evolved every individual. Initially, we received 2,650 million Uganda shillings. Each constituency received 530 million Uganda shillings. I would like to express my gratitude to this platform for providing us with the opportunity to share information about the Emyuga program. Our special thanks go to the President for initiating the program, and additionally, I would like to mention that there are numerous similar projects in Rubare and Ntungamo.
Bintu biri bisatu ebigaggawaza abantu: production, service delivery, obubbi.
Twakye tuuse naye obuzibu obuliwo nti ettaka litugenda okusenda ddene tuyingidde mu muzikiti fuuti 10. Fuuti 10? Omuzikiti ogwagazaki? Tukusende nagwo. Senda.
3,000 tribes, 2,000 languages, 52 countries, totally divided.
Oto, is it the Namgala you talked about? Yeah, Auto Media.
Fire continue burning.
No, let her teach fire.
You started the fight, let it go on. The wedding is cancelled, and my word, final. And take it from me.
Okay, Dad.
The British that first came to this country came way back in 1843. They were not politicians, they were spies.
It's a call to action, an appeal. Let us heed this call to action and change the narrative of our history. Let us bridge the gap. Let us heal the wounds that have plagued us for far too long. Cease fire. Let us harmonize our future. Cease fire.
Yeah, welcome back from that break. And by the time we went off the break, Rachel was raising issues of one said of national interest. But really, when we look at these issues, where did we go wrong? Because the whole of African cultures, African issues, were looking at wealth. People were struggling from day one to ensure that they raise wealth. They have land, they have cows, they have all of these things. Now, we have shifted, like you are saying. We are running a business which we have no idea or of. Because when you're looking at wealth in African context, we are looking at tangible issues. Most of them, both movable and immovable, but properties. Now, the capitalist comes and says, no, this issue has to be money. If you don't have money, you are finished. But you know that old woman in the village who does not need your $2 has food, has clean water, has fresh air, has a house, a roof. It may not be the best, but at least something to that name. So I think for us, what we have done, like copt the political systems and all these other things, we have also gone ahead to copy the income, the wealth business, which we have now interpreted into our systems, and this is where the problem is. So much so that you are now looking at money, 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 money. But there are many other things in the context that, in this particular context, that makes Africans richer and wealthier than money. Ndugu Irumba, you are raising something about the coping of the politics.
Yeah, we have a problem in Africa as a continent, to be honest, that we have accepted other people to bring us their templates, and our job is simply to implement. When you look at the politics of Africa, the template is not our design. The design is from the Western world. And our job is simply to implement. I want to tell you, Mr. Muduta, most of the African countries go to elections every 5 years. Actually, this Rwanda goes every 4 years, I think. Rwanda.
Rwanda is 7.
It's 7.
They added 7.
Rwanda is 7.
And I
they,
hear,
they increased to 7.
And I hear your colleague, your friend, Ruth Luso wants to come to 7.
He knows the rigors of returning to the race very soon.
Now, even if it was 10, even if it was 10, I want to tell you, there is no leader who can change a country in 10 years. It has never happened in any world, nowhere in the world, that there is a leader you give one term, 10 years or 5 years, he comes and he changes his country.
But
let me tell you.
But also that one, is it the selfishness of the leaders that you need to be there until you see the country turning red?
No.
Because it is also possible that once the systems are put in place, that things can change.
And Katina, the systems you're talking about are those that now, the ones we should have put ourselves have been put for us by the colonial masters. I wanted to look at the United Kingdom. That system was built for centuries. It will be there. The prime minister who comes, you are simply on top of a system. Whatever you are doing, there is a system. American system. That's why you see most of the presidents of America are from a few families. When they come here, they want to teach you that, no, if this family has a president, the next one should not come from this family, but from their own politics. Most of the American presidents have come from very few known families. There is a system they build. Here, you come and dictate that every 5 years, every 7 years, every 4 years, you should go for a fresh election. It means someone is going to dismantle everything that the other comrade had put in. Every other, because politicians in nature are selfish. Nobody can come and build on top of what the other has built. No, they want to destroy and start afresh. Now, you want to start afresh and build something in 5 years, it is not possible.
But then you don't blame those you don't blame the 5 years. You're also looking at, if I'm not interested in putting up something that
building on top
she
of
has
the
put in place, that when I come, I don't want to associate with what she has put in place. It means that system is not, that system does not. I have been talking about this thing that you can, eventually, you also end up doing like what the other person was doing, because
or even worse.
Sometimes it has also happened. So I think like what then the problem is not us coping, but it's to do with what we are coping. But even that coping, it also comes with the personalities, because we have seen in some countries that you can have, as long as the systems are working, you can have a very bogus president or leader for whatever reason, but you can find that things are moving. We have seen some near mad people who have gone and been leaders, but things have moved because systems have been built over time. But I think for us, what we have suffered from and still suffering from is that capacity, that we have not been allowed the capacity to build these systems. And maybe as much as we may have wished to build them, the invisible hand that Rachel has normally talks about does not help us to do that, because even the funding will be geared towards things that are peripheral, that will not allow you to be able to build your own systems. But I think if systems are built, even 5 years still can work. I think I'll pick it from there, from Dr. Wanzala.
Now I will categorize, for instance, because I need to be practical here, to be practical instead of being academic. We were discussing, for instance, the issue of poverty, and then the link between poverty and money. Of course, money is important, having the money, but there should be a link between the money and production. That so that you create, you don't only have money for a time being, but you have a sustainable means, okay, kind of a base on which the community can generate money continuously in order to use the money to acquire other things. Now, I will give the example of the post-independence Uganda, because Uganda experienced the fastest development during 1962, 1971, before we got that interruption. You could see that in society, for instance, the biggest asset we had was land. And how were we using this land, for instance? The government of the day invested in the cooperative movement, that areas like mine in Bugisu, which were focusing on coffee, farmers were put together, and then they would be supported to build their own economic base using the soil, the land, as a factor of production. And therefore, when they are producing, they are able, you know, schools that came up because of Bugisu Cooperative Union, like Bukedi College, Kachonga, Teso College, Aloit were supported, and things like that. We also had that those who were not, for instance, in farming, would have organized, those who were in transportation are organized around transportation. So at the end of the day, that people are conversant with what they are involved in, and they're able to support each other and collectively generate income and create wealth. Sure. Someone may have not had too much money in the pocket, but there was some wealth. Now, because of these push factors, maybe projects that are Western based, that are pushed on us, some of them are developed by what the president keeps saying, anti-patriotic technocrats. You develop a program that only aims at giving people handouts. For instance, you go and get a group, like me, I know that circles are good, but they are not the best. Because you bring people, a border rider, a teacher, a prostitute, all of them together into a circle. Now, the objectives are different. What they all do is different. At the end of the day, does the context, that context favor that these circles can become vehicles for transformation? We went into commercialization of the economy, whereby commercial banks, which are mostly foreign, took up the space of money lending. Before, you could find the union lending its member money for maybe buying pesticides. But now, the banks that charge 20%, I saw recently the president complaining that he's going to rain on them. There are people who are even borrowing as high as 10-20% per month, and they're going to invest that money. Is it gambling, or you are really getting money to go and use it to develop yourself? So at the end of the day, if we don't properly analyze our context, and we prioritize well, and we look at areas that we need to strengthen. Then the other is strengthening governance systems in government, that the IGG should not cry that every year technocrats and politicians are stealing 10 trillion in a budget of 52 trillion. So if you take 10 trillion away, stolen by people, then you take 17 trillion in debt servicing, you are left, and your revenue collection, that is tax and non-tax, is 26 trillion. So are you able to do anything for your country? You'll be wasting time.
Yeah, you are raising an issue, and which I also saw, and I think most of all of us could have seen this, that when the World Bank and all the international monetary systems are rating, especially Africa, on the issue of poverty, they are looking at the wastage, how much money we waste in form of corruption, and corruption by technocrats and politicians, that a lot of money, part of the indicators of how poor a society is to do also with how much money is wasted in form of corruption and wasteful expenditure, which of course that amounts to corruption. Now, and much as we sit sometimes and we blame the West and we blame the colonialists, it is true that some of this siphoning, when money is siphoned in Africa, of course, it finds its way back into some of the capitals where people go and buy property, or on the banks, in the foreign banks, where they stash this money. Sometimes when they die, that money is wasted there and given back to Africa in form of aid or to NGOs. But can we then, as the people of Africa, look for a way of having an end to this, so that the Africans can have a say, can define themselves, and can appreciate themselves, that we are unique in our way, and we can therefore not be completely rated with the rest of the world because we are different. In any case, do we, like I said, an example of the circle, if you put us together with the Europeans, with the Americans, with Asians, other than having to eat the food, but even the food we eat, do we have anything in common, Rachel?
I think to answer that question, we have things in common, yes, as Africans, whether they be here or in the diaspora. But even those have not been properly exploited for our own gain. One of the conversations that we've had variously on this very forum has been the fact that we are yet to have an honest conversation as nations, as peoples, concerning exactly who we are, what we want to be, how to even get there. As far as I know, there's never really been a serious all-African conversation of that nature. Forget about the tea parties that routinely happen at the AU, where...
At AU they go to take tea.
Well, that's being nice. I could even put it in other ways. But these tea parties yield nothing.
You're not fair.
What other word can I use? I could use worse words.
Exactly.
But
anyway.
The long and the short is that because the people who go there are definitely not serious about the Pan-African cause, for the simple reason that they are all smart enough to realize that should they pursue this thing to their logical end, their power bases will come to an end. And because most of our leaders have never risen to the level of being statesmen and women, they are not willing to pay such a price. They want to be the kings of their little realms that really do not deliver the ultimate prize. But Dr. Wanzala touched on the fact that when we don't identify the vehicles by which we need to go where we need to go, we are doomed to be in cycles that go nowhere in particular. I said here not very long ago that the people of China, some of the countries that we look at as having defeated extreme poverty this generation, many of them do not subscribe to the governance issues as presented by the West. It therefore leads me to understand that these countries had conversations somewhere along the way, and they realized that the Western model of leadership that they call democracy, but we all realize that it is democracy for the people they want to exploit. A case in point is this conflict in Israel. If that conflict had been one that the government of Uganda was part of, the rhetoric would be totally different at this time. But because Israel is the chief perpetrator of the imperialists' aims in the Middle East, he must be protected at any cost, including telling tall and big lies. What we're trying to say is that if you are just being led, and that is where we are at this time as Africans, everything will be done to preserve the core interests of your minder or handler. I was saying that among the countries that are considered to have broken that barrier of extreme poverty in this generation, among them, India, making big strides. We have China. But we have those ones who have even catapulted themselves further, among them Singapore, and among them Qatar. But of the countries that I've named that are not definitely Western Europe by extraction, it is only, of those, it is only India that subscribes to this democratic model of the West. The rest, in China in particular, it is only a few thousand people who decide China's approach to global affairs, to domestic issues, economic, and definitely their strategic plan for the long term. So that may not be the model that we need in Uganda. But what I'm trying to say is that even when it relates to this issue we are talking about, poverty, it is how a society sees itself.
Sure.
But having sat down and realized what is it that ails us. One of the things, like I was saying, that Dr. Wanzala talked about, this governance issue. Western style of democracy is too expensive for Africa. The way we lift it, the Westminster model, the Washington model, it is not tenable in Africa. For the simple reason that it consumes impossible amounts of money to maintain. The money that we could either use to build our hospitals and to build our whatever it is, the infrastructure, an impossible amount goes to settling conflicts, to going to I don't know, building parliaments. I'm not saying there is something fundamentally wrong with parliament, but I'm saying this interpretation defeats these things we're talking about, poverty alleviation mechanisms. You can't build wealth when all of your budget goes to security because one group of the country is not represented the Western style. The eastern part is now quarreling around the clock. So you build these patronage mechanisms to make sure the people of the East don't go to war. You bring ministers that cannot serve from wherever because they will quarrel. Can't we sit down and develop mechanisms that will deliver the promised land? Qatar, they don't have democracy because it is too expensive. For them, they develop their own model. The reason why we are not making meaningful gains is because the model we are using cannot allow it.
Now, that notwithstanding, when we look at the African, first of all, I think when we talk about systems, we also need to have the alternatives. Now, I think the biggest problem that we have, especially in the African community, is that we don't have the African models that we can talk of. Not that we didn't have models, but I think over time we have forgotten all that we could have promoted to be our models that we could build on as our democratic credentials. Because of course, when you look at African Union, of course, like he said, we could have expected that African Union should come up with a formula on how we need to be governed as people of Africa. That, okay, we're now talking about 4 years, we're talking about 7 years, we're talking about 5 years, we're talking about 10 years. Can't we have a model on the continent to say that let's have, for example, a uniform term of office of this? Because ultimately we'll be looking at now having a union of the African countries. But how are we going to bring together countries of Africa with all these different shades? But at the same time also, do we, even as we look at the African Union, have a common agenda for all these countries in Africa? All these things we are talking about, people are coming into Africa. We have seen in France how the havoc that they have caused in the western part of Africa. Can someone say, look, this is Africa, and this is how we need to be things to be done? In Nduguru Garama is not here, but we have been talking about, to the extent that people have been talking at African Union as no dog at all, let alone the sleeping dog. Then, like, again, I think panelists raised here, I don't remember whom, said the problem of Africa is not only that we have external interferences, but also I think we have a weakness on the part of African leadership.
Yeah, now, let me first deal with the other aspect of you saying that we don't have the capacity to have our own system. First of all, you need to know that our colonial masters systematically got rid of people they thought would bring the African system that we needed. They systematically killed them. Patrice Lumumba, now you can see Gaddafi here recently. You see Sankara, Thomas Sankara.
Samara Machel.
Yeah, but they've done this in other parts of the world. But people have managed to.
That does not justify that it is correct. What I'm saying is, they have systematically dealt away with those that they thought would galvanize Africa and bring it to a seamless system of governance. That is one. Number two, I also want you to remember that before these people came here, we had our own systems of governance.
Exactly, that's my point.
Yes, we had our traditional leaders, our cultural leaders, they are the ones who were in charge, and that king was the king until he died, and if he died, he would, just like it is happening in UAE, Arab countries. It is the cultural leaders who are presidents. Then they go electing ministers from each state.
Yeah, but like many people have raised, and I think even
our leadership system as Africa was based on those cultural norms and traditions.
Sure.
Like other people have, and even the United Kingdom. For them, they came and destroyed ours here, but they maintained theirs. It is the Queen who is the president, although they are deceiving the world that no, I am just a cultural leader, the president, the leader is the prime minister. No, but it's you who elects, and they pick instructions from you. Right now, it is the cultural leader called King Charles who is the president of the United Kingdom. But ours here in Africa, in Uganda, they came and said, no. Just like I wanted to say, to look at the judicial system. Africa had the best judicial systems on how it would attend to issues. Right now, someone wants to administer a case of land seated in Kampala when the matter is in Fort Portal. He doesn't even know the demarcations. Our traditional systems would actually, the king would be in Toro, and the chiefs from that area would be the witnesses to go and give witness. No, Mr. Irumba, your land passes here. You get it? Your land passes here because the chief of the king is there. He's in the village, he sees. Then, recently they had brought LOC system. That LOC system went in 86 there. From 86 to maybe 96. The system was working, the LC1 system. Those land issues would be solved at grassroots levels because the LOC1 chairman knew his subjects' properties. If the goat did not belong to you, even by the skin, the chairman would know. This skin is not your goat. The chicken, they would know. Now, if someone steals your chicken, you have to come to Kampala. The person presiding over that case doesn't even know that you even own the chicken at one time. Now, these systems have been brought by the colonial masters. Why? To simply destroy our indigenous systems of governance with intentions to... Today you can pursue a land case for 20 years. 20 years.
Yeah,
is that really justice?
This one is saying that the African systems existed, but they were destroyed by the very leaders who were complacent and joined the colonialists. I think the colonialists in selling the Africans at will.
Yeah, it is also partially correct, because even this slavery we are talking about, the trading in human beings, it was done in collaboration with the kings.
Yes.
The kings. So the king of Uganda converted human beings with land. That's why they are the biggest landlords. I am the landlord. Amairu Akenda. Where did you buy it? Someone sold his human beings to go into slavery, and then the white man gave you land. You exchanged your subjects with the land.
Yeah, so this man is also raising it that...
Yeah,
and the President Museveni has
but all those are human weaknesses.
The President Museveni has also been talking about it, that these people were here, they knew that certain things were happening elsewhere, and for them, they were only concentrating on the happiness. Like
where did you buy the Maira Kenda? How can one human being, how can one human being have 9,000 square miles of land,
that
and another Uganda has?
I think
where did you buy it?
The problem of Africa, other than documenting that maybe we didn't have a lot of information that was documented that could guide, but also the fragmentation of the African societies. The Ashanti had theirs, the Bantu of this other end had theirs, the Luos with their... So these systems didn't have much in common, although there were a few connectivities that if Africans sat together, they could have decided which best system to be applied.
The white man will not allow you to sit together. That's the whole thing.
I think also, Ndugu Mututa, I think even before we reach the end of this particular conversation, one thing we are not denying is that poverty exists. There are some people who might think this theory is out of this world. Poverty does exist everywhere there are human beings. But what we are trying to say is the present nature of poverty as we know it is very much of a human making. In times past, of course, we were not an ideal society, but the factors that afflict us today are very much oiled along by human factors. Among them, the construct that is colonial in nature. The most important reason for this significant state of, if you call it poverty, that we see today has its basis in the fact that the people who came to sit at the helm of our affairs made sure that there was a permanent, they dismembered the resources that God gave us. They made sure they separated them fully from us. In other words, the resources, like the good doctor here said, the resources are in the land, but we cannot get anything out of them. That was a colonial construct. Because by the time they came, the people here had spears. It means they were able to get the ore out of the ground. It means they were able to refine it in their way. It means they were able to market this thing. Now what they did and spent all their lives doing was to make sure that we do not have the ability on a large scale to extract our own minerals.
And they have.
Sure.
Then they also made sure we don't have the capacity to refine this stuff, take it to the next level. It was so bad and so ridiculous that countries such as Botswana, even CAR, with significant deposits of diamonds, these deposits, these diamonds, for years on end, were polished in Brussels. Can you imagine?
Liberia, one of the poorest of Africa, with diamonds.
Can you imagine getting these diamonds and the refining houses are in Brussels, which does not have a single piece of diamond as far as I know? But once they divorce those three things, you can't extract, you can't refine, then they finished it, you can't even market.
That is the point. In fact, you have raised
So
it.
you have these things, then they concentrate on saying you are poor because they killed your production processes, they killed your refining mechanisms, and they killed the marketing because they decide how much you market. They have these places where they say, okay, diamonds from Tanzania, $2. They have these places. So by the time they finished that thing, you are now a spectator in the world of so-called wealthy nations. That is the chief sin of colonialism.
Yeah, because talking about that, last time when we were here talking about the wealth, the natural wealth of Africa, you realize that even the decisions to be, for example, DRC, to be more practical, produces a lot of gold, a lot of other minerals, but decisions on who buys this gold and how much this gold is bought or the diamond are supposed to be made in New York or London.
Not supposed they are made there.
Exactly. So, and then for them, they will come in, take all whichever much they want, and they go and project it on the, put it on the market as if it is their gold. Since when have some of these countries even had an ounce of gold? But because of the disorganization, much as we blame them to have really killed our systems, but also I think we also ceded much in terms of disorganization, that African leaders have never come together. Because if that happens, I would have expected them, the people of Congo to sit down, the people of the region to sit down and say, no, let us do this. And I think on that one, I have liked the push that that Uganda President Museveni is pushing to ensure that we don't, let's not have raw materials. Let Africa not continue being a place for raw materials just to come, pick and take. We are now powering the rest of the world in terms of motor vehicles, in terms of technology. Last time we analyzed here saying that most of the equipment which is used in wars, military equipment, the technology is powered by materials that are coming from Africa. So can't we also say, at least from now on, can't we do something? But also becomes very tricky, like you said, when you still have these small units calling themselves countries, and they cannot even, and being led by corrupt leaders who also want a cut from stealing from their own people, actually. And we have seen this when we are looking at the West African part, what the French are doing by bribing some of these leaders to be able to continue exploiting. But now, that aside, back to this poverty. With all these resources, you see Africa is not as poor as it is projected. But someone wants to present that notion, and that from that they will be able to come to you in terms of that we're giving you aid, we're sending you experts, but at the end of it, the exploitation continues. So I think it's also important that the technical people in Africa, and that's also where another problem is, because we have had people being bought, when we are looking at pharmacies, that big pharmacies in the pharmaceuticals in the world are looking at Africa and bribing even the experts on the continent to be selling their products more than doing the research so that they can also extract theirs. So like we were saying, the biggest part is also on us, the people of Africa. But there must be a way forward on this. How do we put Africa in its position to be able to stand on its own, but also to be able to do things that it will help it to avoid all this name tagging. And we have seen this happen. We talked of Malaysia, we talked of Singapore, we talked Korea. They have been able to do this because at one point they said, I think enough is enough. Can we at one point have leadership on this continent, both technical and political, that could be able to push such a notion for Africa to come out of this this bottleneck? I think as we wind up, I'll begin with Ndugu on Rumba, and then we will continue until we finish.
First of all, what is the context in which you are saying so and so is poor, so and so is rich? Whose glasses are those that we are using? Comrade Mututa, there is somebody who thinks that once I have a car, I am rich. Doesn't matter whether they have a house, whether they have land. Whether, for him, that is his. That's his understanding of everything. There's another person who thinks, when I have hard cash in my pocket here, I am rich. Doesn't matter whether you are able to take your children to school, whether you have land, whether when you are sick you can be able to go to the best school. No, as long as I have my money here. There is a person in African context, the more children you have, the more wealth you calculate. That's you feel proud, you feel wealthy when you have more children. A Muslim feels rich when he has more than one, a woman, wife. Now, when you say you must have $2 minimum a day for you to know that you are above this poverty level. That dollar in Uganda, $2 in Uganda means something different. In Kenya, $2 means something different in terms of value, isn't it?
Yes.
In Congo, it means something different. In Ghana, it means something. The value of the dollar depends on the country. But for you, I've said minimum what? $2. So I don't understand you. I don't understand you because suppose $2 in my country means 10,000, but then $2 in Ghana means 1,000. Are you saying that person is at the level of wealth with me? So their weighing scale for identifying who is rich, who is poor, is according to their own understanding, and basically it serves their interest.
Sure.
Last week I was here, I told you, the same American who has said that South Sudanese are very poor and Congolese are very poor, the same person, he says it on Monday. On Tuesday, he takes there his Jeep for sale. You are saying someone is poor. You are taking a Jeep, the most expensive car, for that person to buy. He's going to buy using what? You said he's poor. And indeed he will sell the Jeep. So, do you still maintain that this person is poor when he has bought your most expensive products? You get the point? I think for a long period of time, the problem with Africa is that our preoccupation has been to absorb every narrative that somebody creates on us. Yeah. Our job has been to receive. We don't even have time to analyze. No. America said this, that's what we take. America said, that's why today, you see, most of the African countries are coinciding with the African position on Palestine and Israel because America has said. It's only a few of us who are analyzing and saying, but please, if you say you're the champion of democracy, you cannot still continue advocating for an eye for an eye. If you say Palestine has killed 2 people in Israel, you can't arm Israel to also go and kill 20, and you say you're promoting peace. No.
Okay. And do go Wanzala.
Now, for me, I will go to a way forward. One, that African nations need to redefine their values. For instance, in Uganda, our forefathers thought a lot when we were establishing Uganda. You look at the national flag and its meaning, for instance. It is showing the black, Pan-Africanism, or the black person wherever they are. Red, you know what red means. That is humanity, okay? Yellow, the beautiful climate we have. Look at the coat of arms, for God and my country. I believe that God is not a thief. Why do we become thieves in the running of public affairs? So, and then we use the state institutions charged with citizens' education, like Uganda Human Rights Commission, empower them financially to teach the citizens to understand their duty in developing their countries, why they have to live unity in diversity, and then they make a meaningful contribution to their country. Now, the other is to strengthen integration in Africa. The last time I checked, Africa trades by itself by only 15%. But we are crying for markets in Europe, even when the standards are controlled, but within Africa they are not.
Sure.
So we need to integrate further. We remove transportation bottlenecks. I saw when President Museveni budgeted for a road to Congo, and many people criticized, of course, but for me I saw value in that it strengthens trade across the borders and improves security. Now, we also as Africa need a common agenda, and we need spokespersons. We used to have them, the Kaundas, the WHOs. Today we need leaders who speak for Africa. And then the African Union, which she named what?
Tea Party.
Tea Party. Yes, she was very right. You are a body that represents the unity of all African people, but you beg China to build for your headquarters. You go and borrow EU, you beg for EU. That's when they will smuggle in sexual immorality, things like homosexuality. So at the end of the day, we need to believe in ourselves. If Haile Selassie and others, Idi Amin, were able to pay subscription in the African Union in the 70s, why are we failing now? There are over 15 countries I saw that are failing to even pay a penny in the African Union.
That's why Kenya is saying we should have a say when we pay.
Absolutely. So, and then we need to strengthen our own internal governance systems and also review our politics, whether what we are doing is the right thing or not. I remember a certain group, they were called NRM Cadres Transformers Forum, came up with preferring an indirect election. When I read so many comments, people thought that when you all elect a president, then you'll have good leadership. It may be wasted. You may adopt the South African model where you only vote a party.
Yeah.
And when you vote a party, people are not wasting money buying votes. Because if I go as Gerald to contest, that's why our MPs are finding difficulties. You have to lobby, you may even ask for bribes in order to go and meet endless needs in your constituency because of that. Maybe vote a party, you put the box for NRM, UPC, and they tick it. You take that seat, the party appoints a member of parliament. You will have avoided wasting time, wasting money. These are discussions that Africa should continue having.
Sure. Rachel.
I think on that very same issue, the countries that dominate the list of the most poor in the world, and by the way, they are mostly
Africa.
Actually, totally African. But most of them, the issue that informs their worrying situation is armed conflict, outstanding governance issues. For some of them, it's climate change. Others, it's being landlocked and you have issues to get your whatever it is that you need for your development efforts. But the issue of governance and the issue of security are the ones that take a disproportionate amount of our resources. Because we have never had a conversation among ourselves and we are yet to agree as national groups, as continental bodies, concerning exactly or executing the exact mode of governance that our peoples want from us. We have spent the last 60 years trying to make work what someone in Westminster made work after 600 years. We don't have 600 years. We have been trying to, for example, Liberia. These were people who were black Americans who came back to start, you know, the democratic process in that land. But we see that because the interpretation of that system has become impossible in Africa, there is need to develop our own so that we don't, like you said, is it in the Bible that these cycles of so-called democratic terms is what should be? Is it in the Quran? If it takes all the money that you could use to build infrastructure, why can't we have a meeting of minds and say, look, for China, it has allowed them to leapfrog. Why can't we do the same? Get good people, 4,000 of them, let them decide for the rest of us. It doesn't mean we are brainless. It means we'll meet our targets faster. If the people of Qatar came to that conclusion and it's working, I'm sure there are voices over there that say, you know, this shouldn't be. But look at how much money we've saved over the term. Instead of this bloated administration, this bloated number of political actors, bloated number of unproductive sectors, can we find a way of pulling that money and applying it to our development efforts? The sooner we have that conversation, the better. Yeah. I'd like to conclude, Ndugu Mututa, by saying this Western model of governance is costing us too much, and it is unworkable in the African space. Yes, that's the main reason for our poverty. We are yet to discover how we are and how to go about it. Therefore, we cannot break free of this poverty. The definitions of what constitutes poverty are alien. How to go about it is alien. Who should go about it is alien. And you expect results? I don't think so.
Yeah, because then the complications and the implications coming to an extent that we need to look at poverty as Africans, define it in our own way, but with connections to the international systems. And I think you saw this during the COVID time, that Africa became more stable in terms of even food. That, for example, Uganda, even the costs for food went early, and there was, down, and there was enough to eat. But that means that this interconnectiveness of Africa, he talked about the trading within Africa, and because Africa, we didn't have these dollars, we didn't have this money. We had a few, we were exchanging, our markets were for exchange. You take this, I take this. Someone thought that was backwardness. But maybe we need to be backward a bit to be able to push forward. And if we are going to run with some of the people that may sit in their capitals and decide for what should be done in Africa, and also entirely giving to that, we could be opening, or have already actually opened too much. But I think it's not too late. But the African leadership now needs to sit down to rediscover what is good for Africa, and the likeness minds of people sitting together and agreeing, so no, this is good for us and let's do it. And we need now a big prefect on this continent to be able to do that. I know it is not easy because people are comfortable and there are smaller districts that form these countries. But I think at one point when Africans will sit down and when Africa will begin talking, and we're happy things like the free trade area coming up, these regional blocks are coming up. Once the leadership in these blocks come up and begin talking together and looking at Africa for survival that we need to work together, I think that's going to be possible. Thank you so much for people who have been, the viewers who have been with us for all this time. Sorry we could not bring to you the people who are outside on Zoom, but I hope next time we'll be with them. Of course, Ndugu Rugarama has been absent consistently for the last 3, but he will be with us any moment soon. I think by next week we'll be with him in the studio. UBC is going to give you more interesting programs, and also we'll go in the weekend. We wish you the best of the weekend. We thank you for your time, and thank the production team and my colleagues who have been on set here. Until next week when we meet, I say God bless you and be good. Have a nice weekend.